The last few years have seen competition between the Sony Xperia 5 and ASUS ZenFone in the market for small smartphones. ASUS and Sony still make small phones, while the majority of manufacturers are focused on creating larger foldable gadgets. Fans of one-handed small phones may find it challenging to decide between the ASUS ZenFone 10 and the Sony Xperia 5 Mark V. They both have small form factors and high-end specifications. In order for you to choose which phone is worth your hard-earned money, we will review what makes these two phones worthwhile in depth. The ASUS ZenFone 10 is offered for as little as $700. Although it didn't officially debut until late August in the US, it has been accessible in Europe since the end of June. It starts at £820 in the UK and €800 elsewhere in Europe. On September 1st, Sony unveiled the Xperia 5 Mark V, which is now pre-orderable for €999 in Europe and £849 in the UK. The ZenFone 10 is your only choice if you live in the US as of this writing, because neither the price nor the release date for the Xperia 5 Mark V in the US have been announced. We're comparing two small-sized phones, so the aesthetics and feel of the devices rank highly. At 146.5 by 68.1 by 9.4mm and 172 grams, the ASUS ZenFone 10 is slightly smaller and lighter in terms of dimensions. The Sony Xperia 5 Mark V weighs 183 grams and measures 154 by 68 by 8.6mm. The ASUS is the best option if you want the smallest phone possible because of its slightly reduced height. Both devices have two cameras on the back for the purpose of taking pictures, but the ASUS's lenses are much more noticeable. Which phone you prefer will depend on personal preference, but they are both stylish. While ASUS uses a hole punch appearance for its selfie camera with smaller bezels, Sony has larger bezels around the front, with the selfie camera tucked into them. The Sony Xperia 5 Mark V is offered in black, blue, and platinum silver, as far as colors go. A wider variety of colors are available on the ASUS ZenFone 10: Midnight Black, Starry Blue, Aurora Green, Eclipse Red, and Comet White. The Sony uses its dual IP65 or IP68 rating, and the ASUS has an IP68 rating, making both phones robust. You can rest easy knowing that both phones will be able to withstand the hazards of life because they are both sufficiently protected from solid and liquid ingress. While ASUS uses the original Gorilla Glass Victus, Sony uses the slightly more recent Corning Gorilla Glass Victus 2. You shouldn't have to worry about the screens breaking because both are durable. In terms of specs, the displays on both phones are comparable. The Sony phone has a slightly larger 6.1-inch screen with a 2520 by 1080 resolution. The ZenFone 10 has a 5.9-inch screen with a resolution of 2400 by 1080. The Sony and ASUS both have similar pixel densities, with 449 ppi for the Sony and 446 ppi for the ASUS. With a 144Hz refresh rate compared to Sony's 120Hz, ASUS has a slight advantage. The phones will offer the same speeds when used regularly, however, the 144Hz is only usable when playing games with the Game Genie feature of the phone. It will be challenging to distinguish any significant performance differences between the most recent compact phones from ASUS and Sony. Each one is equipped with a brand new Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip. Since this is a high-end flagship processor, any app you can think of will run without a hitch on either device. Both smartphones come with 8 GB of RAM by default, but the ASUS ZenFone 10 offers up to 16 GB, which might be useful for those who are concerned about performance. Size of the battery is one area in which Sony has a clear advantage. It has 5000 mAh as opposed to the ASUS ZenFone 10's 4300 mAh. Although the slightly larger screen will consume some extra juice, counteracting some of the advantages, that extra size may make a difference. The rear of both phones has two cameras. You get a 52 megapixels main camera, effectively 48 megapixels and a 12 megapixels ultra-wide lens with the Xperia 5 Mark V. Ironically, ASUS included a 50 megapixels primary lens made by Sony and a 13 megapixels ultra-wide lens. If you're a serious photographer, you can get along with either back camera because they are similar. On the front, the Sony has a 12 megapixel selfie camera, while the ASUS has a 32 megapixel selfie camera. The ASUS ZenFone 10 has an advantage in terms of selfies, thanks to that reasonably significant resolution difference. For the majority of people, I'd have to slightly favor the ASUS ZenFone 10. It is more widely accessible, for starters. Additionally, it costs a little less while offering the same or better specifications. Additionally, it is a little bit smaller than the Sony, which is important for those looking for a small phone. The Sony Xperia 5 Mark V is perfect in every way. It's a capable phone with top-notch cameras, the most recent flagship processor, and all the other bells and whistles. It is smaller and lighter than the ZenFone 10, but slightly larger. However, it is constrained by the cost and the absence of a global distribution network. I hope you like this comparison. I can also recommend watching our other videos about Xperia 5 Mark V. The links will be in the description. Have a nice day and God bless you.